Well done to Bruno Fernandes. Couldn't quite get his team over the line, though, today. The Manchester United fans didn't have masses to shout about, in truth. They're making some noise now, though, because this is an organised sit-in, you can see. That's why the Stretford end is still populated, and they are protesting against the ownership still, the Glazers, rising ticket prices and a lot more besides. We'll see if that goes on for much longer. So what about Bruno Fernandes' assessment of what we saw then, Roy?
Yes, pretty honest out of him, yeah, of course. Again, we saw the lack of quality, the lack of goals, which is really holding the club back the last couple of years. I still think that, I'm not sure what the mindset is in this group of players in terms of trying to win football matches. You need Gary Sundler pretty well at the end of the game. I think they need to show a bit more courage. They all show images of ex-players, people like Canton in the crowd, and we go back to the managers I played with other teams. And I know you might say this team's not as good as that, obviously not. But there's a responsibility, I still think, when you're playing for Manchester United, to try and win football matches. And I still don't think they're doing enough to win matches. You look even over the last 3 or 4 games, where they beat Leicester, but they drew home here to Arsenal. They lose at Forest. They draw here, and it's almost, oh well, I still think they need to do a bit more. Gamble a bit more.
But do you think
not necessarily silly getting everyone in the box, but when you get moments, to take more risks. And there is that element when you play for Man United. There is that when you're watching the player play for Man United, that they are prepared to take risks, particularly the attacking players. And I don't see enough of that. So what we're seeing today is, as much as we're all disappointed with it, what were we expecting really? Because they don't score enough goals, and they've not done for the last year or two. And that's not going to change.
But is that not a symbol of where this Manchester United team are right now? They don't feel good enough to take Arsenal on, to take Manchester City on at their own game.
I get that, but there still has to be a change of mindset. You have to start somewhere. Yeah, you have to start somewhere. This is a derby game where Man City have come, who aren't in great form themselves. They're a good team, and obviously you've got quality players. So it's a home game. You're thinking, listen, City aren't that great. You've had one opportunities, and they've had chances, and they're making the wrong decision. People not getting in the box, people not hitting the target, people not taking opportunities. And again, it's the mindset of find a way to win. Find a way to get a set piece, get a last minute. City defended quite well. I think some good crosses going into the box, and the 2 centre-halves in particular, I think, done quite well. But I still look at this Man United team, and I'm going back over the last year or two, not just today, and going, where is that mindset and that gamble from somebody to say, even 2 or 3 pop, I'm going to get in, I'm going to get crossed in air post, I'm going to produce some. And we're waiting for Bruno to do it all the time. He does it a lot of time, but it needs other players to step up to the plate. And when you sign for Man United, there is that responsibility, because they all sit there and they'll sit down and they'll discuss their contract for months and get a deal done. But when you do that and you come to Man United, you do look and go, no, lads, there is a responsibility of playing for Man United, and not enough players, particularly attacking players.
Have you seen an improvement, though, Roy?
Sorry?
Have you seen an improvement with it? I think
I can't see it, but I'm happy to be.
I just mean from the system. Obviously, we're playing 3-4-3. It's new to everyone. The manager's persistent on he wants to play that. It takes players a longer time to adapt to that. I try and see all that.
There's new players at the club, a new manager, and he came in at a difficult spell. I know that, and there's been trouble over the last few years. But you're still looking for some sort of change in the. Again, more so the mindset. Again, we talk about tactics and systems. I'm on about balls going into the box, and some good balls going into the box. You're waiting for somebody to.
Yeah, but the system is.
Do you think there's more structure, Micah?
I think it's more structure.
The system. You've obviously got 11 players on the pitch. In that system, 7 are defensive-minded players.
Correct.
So you've got your 4 across the middle, your 3 in your back 3, and then you've obviously got your keeper, if you include that. And you've got 3 forward players who are natural goal scorers, natural creators. You know, your Bruno Fernandes, your Mason Mounts, your Xerxes, your Højlund. There's not enough output coming from them, but also your reserves. So your best chances often fall to wing-backs. Look at Dorgu today. You can't expect Dorgu to score. It reminds me of Tottenham a few seasons ago, when they play with wing-backs and their best chances fall to wing-backs, and they're not natural goal scorers. And I don't care.
And it's where they're starting from as well, Izzy.
Exactly.
They're having to run 40, 50 yards just to get a chance.
That's exactly it. And it almost becomes, we break the lines. It's desperate. We have to score. We have to score, otherwise, it's a catastrophe.
So is it a matter of just getting better quality personnel into those positions?
Absolutely.
Which is going to take time, isn't it?
Yeah, but there still could be more of a goal threat. Yeah, you're always going to want your attacking players, and the couple of strikers they have at the club aren't good enough for Man United. I get that, but there's other players on the team. There's wide players. Defenders can score goals. I'm talking about set pieces. The goal, for example, the goal they gave away against Forest the other night, it's a corner. and then you have an opposition player running 70, 80 yards. Yeah, it's a great run, and you could say a great goal, but someone's got to tackle him. That's the mindset I'm talking about. Have a desire to dig deep and find a way to get a result.
How do you get that mindset, though? You're talking about it. You keep going back to your teams, and your team had that mindset. Maybe this
it's got to come from the manager, the staff. They've got to try and get it into the certain leaders they have in the dressing room. I'm not saying they can all be like that, but you have to have a few lads. You go, they've got experienced players out there. They've got Maguire, Casemiro, Fernandes. Did they get a grip of these players? That's what I talk about. Now, we watch them at weekends, but I go back to it. I'm always intrigued what happens day to day at the training ground. Who's drilling? Garnacho, for example. We played around many years ago. Ollie Solskjaer ran 70, 80 yards to bring somebody down. He got sent off. Sacrifices for the team. And a sacrifice for attacking players might be making a run, might be making a good ball out of a bad ball. But I just see the United team today, and yeah, we're frustrated because we want to see action and goals. But it's just a case, and they're all applauding and they're all getting interviewed after. Go, yeah, but as if a draw's not too bad. A draw gets you nowhere fast. And same a couple of weeks ago with Arsenal home here. I know they've beaten Leicester and the Real Sociedad. Again, I'm talking about just the last few games where you're looking going, but this is not enough. This is not good enough. And I'm. So we're. But
that's the level that they are now.
So forget the teams that I played for. But I'm on about United. Forget the top 3 or 4 teams. I'm on about competing with Brentford and Crystal Palace and Fulham and Wolves and all these teams. Are you telling me Man United should be behind them?
Do you think
even this group of players?
Do you think this group of players are better than those teams that you've mentioned?
I think so. I still think the majority of these players should be doing better than the teams I've just mentioned. Do you think Man United should be scoring more goals than Wolves? If we want to start somewhere, you've got to have a starting point. You go, right, in terms of scoring goals, Man United over the history, you're talking about the Cantonese, the using Man United, it's about entertaining fans today. The fans today.
I agree with you. I agree with everything that you're saying, but I think the system makes it harder for them to do.
But do you think United? Do you think this group of players? All right. Do you think this group of players should be 13th or 14th in the league?
I agree with you. I think they should be better. But when a manager is persistent on playing a formation...
But I'm not talking about top 4, top 5 here. I'm talking about can they make progress to get to 8th, 9th, and this group of players have to be doing better at that. And to do that, they have to score more goals, obviously, and take more gambles. And there's a great word, I think Gary meant, you have to have courage. You have to play courage for playing for Man United when it's 70 or 80,000 looking at you and you're up against it. It's easy when you're winning every week, of course that. But it's wanting the ball when you don't want it.
But you're also talking about attacking players, Roy. Højlund's still not proven in the Premier League. Xerxes is still new to it.
Right. Yeah.
So is he going to be scoring goals in any other team?
So's Amram as well. And you go to those other teams, Brentford, Crystal Palace. They've had time with their managers. Thomas Frank, how long has he been at Brentford? And he's built this system, and it makes them bulletproof at times. You know, they know what they're doing. Amram's not had that time, and that's not a cop-out saying, oh, he needs more time to get this team up to that level.
But sometimes a manager comes into a club and there's a reaction straight away.
Well, you could mention Ollie Glasson last year, who was playing that in a very similar system of formation that Manchester United are. Was his impact not quite immediate at Crystal Palace?
It wasn't immediate, was it? Well, he got a bit of a bounce, but it wasn't immediate, and we're seeing the benefits from it this season. That they're performing at a pretty high level. Yeah, the league table, I mean, what do Crystal Palace expect in terms of league position? I'm not sure, but you can see what they're trying to do. And Manchester United, I saw signs today, clutching even, saw signs of the system working, but Roy's spot on that. They just completely don't create anything, and it's because there's no sort of camaraderie in the final third, and the attacking pieces just don't seem to work yet.
Do you think the system is a problem then, Roy? Would you be throwing it out at this stage?
But the manager's going to stick with it, isn't it? The manager's...
But is that the right thing to do?
No, well, obviously that's the gamble he's taking, because ultimately if he's not getting football results, and we're talking about next year when he will no doubt get an opportunity to bring players in the summer, and then we'll have maybe be able to judge it better.
But the problem with that, Roy, is they're going to be signing players specifically for the system that he wants to play.
And that's obviously the way he's going. That's his beliefs and his philosophy, and that's fine. But I like to play for teams of philosophies is we like to win football matches. I like that philosophy. I don't ever remember sitting in a dressing room with the players I played with and some decent players at other clubs, including Forest and brilliant managers, where we discussed our philosophy or what way we're going to... We'd find different ways to play. Man United were trying to play out today and got caught a few times, and I'm like, I don't like that. There's times for it. But if that's the way... If they're going to go down that road and they're picking up results and you're going, do you know what, they're scoring plenty of... But I don't see it. My eyes don't lie to me. No, I'd like to be proven wrong, and Man United are in the top 5 or 6 next year. You're going, I'll take it all back. But I don't see it. I've watched the game. I've seen a few live games lately. I watched Forest the other night. I was kicking my cups of tea over. I was watching it. All I hear was they're neat and tidy. But they were never going to score. Never going to score. No goals again today. part of playing for Man. You're going to go back to responsibility for when you're playing for a big club and you're getting all this, the big contracts and all the reward. Is a responsibility to win football matches. Ultimately, is that what we're here for? To win. We're praising Liverpool. We're praising Liverpool for the last few months. Why? Because they're clinical and they're winning football matches. So when we sit here and watch Man United, we're going, I'm getting fed up with this. But have you seen signs of what? Signs of getting the odd draw? Getting the odd...
Roy, that's where they are at this moment of time. No, so that's what you have to judge them on.
That's right. But I don't think it's good enough.
But you've said it right. The players at this moment, I believe, in the system doesn't work. I think it was on Amorim at the start. He said he's going to play this system. He's going to persist with this system.
And good luck to him.
And it's at the detriment to the players and him at this moment. Long term, I think when he wants to play the system, I think it will come good. But he needs a window. He needs to get the players that he wants. But right now, he's got players playing in positions what are unfamiliar to them. So we're asking them to do things that they can't really do. Dorgu's their best player
sure
today.
Before the game, I was going to talk about tactics.
Does he also not need to build... I mean, it's not momentum because they're not winning games, but they've got a huge game hit on Thursday night against Lyon. Do they need to build some confidence in terms of not losing games, being solid? He said after the Arsenal game...
How long do you keep saying that, not losing...
But they're playing Arsenal and Manchester City in back-to-back home games, and he said after the Arsenal game, this is not the way we want to play long term, but we have to take small steps.
So we should expect Man United to beat Man City today.
They don't have a divine right to win Man United, do they? They're playing at the level in which they are right now, and you throw the system on that. That's the results of what you're getting. Yeah. I believe if they was playing 4-3-3, which the players are familiar with, they'd be doing a lot better than they are now. I think it's the system at the moment is hindering a little bit, but long term with Amorim, I think it will work well for them. But we need time.
You're talking about expectation. You're playing Arsenal, Man City. They beat Man City at Man City.
Yeah, but
they lost heavily to them last season. I know,
but they beat Arsenal in the cup down there, so they have shown moments where they can do it. But it's just doing it week in, week out. And when they're walking off the pitch, every time we come to Old Trafford, they're getting applauded off the pitch for getting draws. So that's where the mindset and where the standards of the club is. It's a problem off the field at the moment. We see some fans protesting, and it's a huge problem on the field. So this team can produce. They've shown it in moments over the course of the season. They went to Liverpool, did they get a draw, and they nearly won it at the end. They've beaten Man City early in the season. They've beaten Arsenal in the Cup in a tough game, and they had a man sent off. So they have proved they can kind of get over the line in certain games. But it's just the lack of goals. And I suppose if you do win matches, I get that. You get a bit of confidence and belief in the dressing room, particularly for the new players. And if the strikers aren't scoring goals, then it's a huge problem. Steve Bruce said many times before, you're only as good as your strikers. And at this moment in time, that's where it's a big struggle. If you can't score goals, you're constantly under pressure.
Well, that's interesting, isn't it? Gary Neville has rejoined us. They don't have that feeling to win every game at home right now. What do you make of that?
I sort of know what he's saying by the fact that obviously when they play against City, they're probably worried before they go into a game against Lyon in midweek that they're going to get a bit of a doing. But I don't think there was one player walked off that pitch at the end that was disappointed about drawing the game 0-0.
From either side?
From either side. I think they all sort of walked off thinking, oh, we're OK here. We got away without making a mistake. I think that was the sort of type of game. It was really disappointing. And I apologise for my cold commentary, actually. I think I let it get to me. I was boring on there as well. That was drab as well. Honestly, just the whole game. There's part of me, I get what he's saying about it being that point in the season, about City United are in a difficult moment, but this robotic nature of not leaving our positions, of basically being micromanaged within an inch of our lives, of not having any freedom to take a risk to go and try and win a football match, is becoming an illness in the game. It's becoming a disease in the game. And I think ultimately, think about Pep Guardiola and his teams over the last 10 years, that's what his teams do. But we're seeing poor imitations of that across the board now. You know, United's goalkeeper rolling his foot on the ball and waiting for things to happen. That's not it. That's not what this club is. That's not what we do here. You know, Liverpool don't do that. You've got to be a top team with tempo in your play, rhythm in your play, get the ball moving, shift it quickly. And also, I think from a United perspective, I get why he's gone deep. I get why he's gone back into a sort of, like he called it, a low block. But that's what we've seen from Jose Mourinho. It's what we've seen from Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. It's what we've seen from Erik ten Hag. They've all come in with the intention of playing high press, high energy football, but all end up going back to a low block in big games. And I do understand why Ruben Amorim's done that today with the players he's got, because he hasn't got the players to adapt. They need 5 new players, Manchester United, straight away before you even think about the rest of it. The 3 up front are not good enough. The 2 behind and the 1 and the 2 wing backs, they're not good enough. So they need 5 players. They need to serve him with 5 players who are good enough in this system to be able to play his system the way he wants. But the game today really was quite depressing for me, because I think we've seen a lot of these types of games. And the Premier League is about excitement, it's about thrill, it's about risk. And there was nothing like that in that game, so that's not good enough.
But just on Manchester United, Gary, he said there, candidly again, we need to do everything, we need to improve everything. Oh, but also, he's in a rush.
But he's very honest.
So something got to give.
I actually think he's really honest, because he says they need to improve everything. You know, and to be fair, Patrick came in with something along the lines of, you know, too much to even sort of list. But he is in a rush. He's realistic. I actually think his interviews are really honest. I think they're really open. He hasn't got time.
But has he got to shift the balance a little bit in terms of results then?
But what he's saying is, at this moment in time, is what we're seeing. He's not lying to us. He's not bullying us like some managers do, to be fair to him. He's saying it's not very good. We've got so much to improve. And by the way, I haven't got a lot of time to improve it, or else you'll sack me. I think he's telling us the truth, because next season, if we're in 13th at Manchester United or in the lower half of the table, he's had 12 to 18 months to try and get the players in place, and he is where he is today. He'll be under pressure, and he knows that. I think he's actually, to be fair, being really open and honest about things, and I think he's telling us the truth.
Well, it's some more drop points this afternoon for Manchester City in a weekend that Aston Villa won. Newcastle play against Leicester tomorrow. If Newcastle win that game, City will drop out to the top 5. That is stark, and that will be a stark reminder, if that does happen, of the fight that City have to be playing Champions League football again next season, which you would think at this stage is the priority, along with the FA Cup. This is about local pride today, the derby. So do Manchester City emerge with any more pride than Manchester United have been talking about for the last 20 minutes?
I think watching Man City has been a little bit disappointing this season. I think I mentioned before about how incredibly well they've done over the past 4 seasons, winning the league, but there's been a massive drop-off. More so in midfield. I think the team looks a lot older now.
Was today really a stark reminder of that?
It was, because when Man City were pressing, normally they do it with intent, urgency. Now everything's a little bit too easy, and if you beat the first line of press, normally have the defenders or midfielders backing you up. Fernandes was just getting the ball in the middle of midfield, playing, doing exactly what he needed to do. I think they've just lost their intensity. That's what I think it is. I think that they're tired. It's so hard seeing him like this after being so good for so many years. But he knows, Pep Guardiola, there. You could see in his interview there, coming to Old Trafford in a derby, they're normally better than that. And today it was just flat. We can't make excuses. The game was dull, and we expect more for them.
Is there a real danger now that Champions League football escapes Manchester City next season?
Well, they've got different routes in. They've got the FA Cup route if they win that, and they've obviously 5th is looking likely that the Premier League will get that spot. But I think today's a massively...
FA Cup will be Europa League.
Sorry, Europa League, my bad. But it's a missed opportunity with Chelsea's result as well today. You would have thought, you see that result earlier on and you go, hang on a minute. But I agree with Micah in terms of the intensity attached to the game today from Manchester City's perspective. It didn't exist. And that first half, you could have put like a 40-metre square grid inside Manchester United's half, and every single player was inside there. There was no width. Savinho's been one of the most creative players this season. He was on the bench. I mean, I'm not for one minute criticising what Pep's doing, because we know how effective he is. But I just thought they struggled massively today, and they had no options. I thought they were playing loose passes. They don't normally play loose passes, and that's normally their bread and butter. So a really bad day at the office for them as well.
Gary, are you all right, Gary?
No one's got good words to say about anybody
today.
No, to be fair, you come back to the sort of basic essence of football when you play as a kid in the yard, in the school playground, or in the backyard as a kid, and it's exciting and there's a thrill to it. And 75,000 people have rocked up today. There might be Manchester City fans, kids who are coming to their first Manchester derby at Old Trafford. There might be kids who are coming to watch the first Old Trafford Manchester derby for United fans, and they've watched that. And that's why I feel just sometimes, I get 0-0s can happen, but that game today wasn't a game. That's not a Premier League game of football. It's not representative of the Premier League. It's not representative of Manchester City now they've been over the last few years. And seeing them walk around at the end together, sort of clapping, sort of shaking each other's hands and smiling with each other. Where was the disappointment that they'd played like that in a game, or that they'd drawn 0-0? This is an exceptional team with one of the greatest coaches of all time. And there was no intensity whatsoever from them. And United are in a difficult moment, but there's no intensity from United or risk to win the game. That's why I'm disappointed. It's such a drab affair. You don't normally see that.
Just feels like that door is still open for Kevin De Bruyne around the Club World Cup at the end of this season. We'll wait and see what he and City decide to do around that. But let's put his career on paper, if it's possible, at Manchester City. 414 appearances. 106 goals. His trademark was from outside the box, 41. But look at the weight of assists, 169. And that helped his team to 6 Premier League titles, 13 major trophies in all, including the Champions League, 2 FA Cups, 4 League Cups along the way. Only Ryan Giggs with more Premier League assists than Kevin De Bruyne. The best minutes per assist ratio in Premier League history, and one of 7 players to be named PFA Player of the Year twice. Roy, what was it that marked him out as different, as special?
I think them stats. You know, when you think... we've been sitting here today frustrated about lack of goal action and putting the ball in the back of the net. He done that as a midfielder, and his assists are absolutely fantastic. I think he almost, he made everything look easy. That's when I judge a player, I always seem to be fighting the ball. When he's in possession, he always looks he's in total control. Of course, it's been difficult the last year or two with injuries, but when he was in his prime, I think as good as any midfielder in the Premier League, particularly from an attacking point of view. And his stats there with the assists, plus the goals, is, I think, pretty amazing.
So you would have him in your all-time Premier League 11?
Without a shadow of a doubt, yeah, I'd have him in there.
Do you think he's got some sort of unique characteristics, almost excelling in a certain position on the field, Gary?
Yeah, because he's not your classic central midfield player or a right winger or a number 10. He plays in that sort of right pocket. And the players that I sort of reminds me of when I watch him are David Beckham and Steven Gerrard in terms of the crosses that he puts in. And these players are some of the best players we've ever seen in the Premier League, and Kevin De Bruyne would be my all-time Premier League 11 as well. I think he's been the best player in the Premier League for the last 7 or 8 years. And he puts crosses into a box that make defenders not know whether to want to actually touch it, leave it, because it's in an area whereby it's so dangerous. In between you and the goalkeeper, you know exactly what he's going to do. He's predictable, actually, in terms of reading him. So was Beckham and Gerrard, but the problem is you still can't do anything about it because the precision and the accuracy is so good. He's an absolute world-class player, and the delivery for me that's something every time I watched him was just a thing of beauty.
So 2 out of 4 have got him in the all-time 11. Pressure now. Is he in yours as well, is he?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I mean, you know, fond admirer of any attacking midfielder who scores goals, assists, and the way that he does, and the way that he plays football. I think his best moments have come off the cuff. You know, we spoke before the game a bit about, you know, Man City, you're going to hate this methodology and system and, you know, all of that. And that is how they've got their success. But I think some of De Bruyne's best moments have come from him picking up a loose ball and just fizzing it into space. We've seen it with Bruno Fernandes a little bit. You know, he's got that capacity to do that. And De Bruyne has been doing it so consistently in the last 10 years.
The quality, Micah, but would you also say there's a really impressive athlete within there as well?
Yeah, he had pace. I think that's what we see now with the way he plays now. He's not got that extra yard he had a couple of years ago. Yeah, exactly that. And I played with Yaya Toure and David Silva, and I thought they were the best players, but I think he's just outed them over this last couple of seasons. David Silva was more of a touch technician, get the ball deep and play through the lines. Yaya Toure was so good on the ball, he could burst forward and play a pass. But Kevin De Bruyne, his numbers are just different. Gravy, what a player he's been. Absolute legend.
We can compare his numbers with the very best of the creative attacking midfield players we've seen in the Premier League. Here's the list that we've conjured up, including the 2 you mentioned, Micah, David Silva and Yaya Toure. So if you're picking your Premier League all-time 11, there's perhaps room for 2, maybe even 3 of these.
No, because you've not got Vieira and Roy in there, players who, to be fair, are completely different. That's why I think sometimes when you're talking about sort of midfield players, now these are attacking midfield players, and De Bruyne is right up there. I mean, that stat of the minutes per goal and assist, the 111, is so much greater than the rest if you look at it. It's incredible, the contribution to games. And what Kevin De Bruyne played in that right channel quite methodically. However, if the team needed it, he would then widen himself and go and get on the ball and make crosses into the box. And he would always be that player that would do what the team needed to win the game. I always felt he was a difference maker. Whereas obviously the players you've mentioned, David Silva and Yaya Toure, amazing players, but they weren't difference makers like De Bruyne. I mean, they could impact a game, but De Bruyne, for me, won City so many games. The pressure he put on with the crosses and his passing were unbelievable.
So does that a goal or assist every 111 minutes, does that make him the very best in that position?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's won a treble, he's won 6 Premier League titles. He's absolutely right at the very top. He's done everything that you could ever ask for in the Premier League. He's right at the very top.
Just to add to what you were saying, I think Kevin De Bruyne is amazing. The only thing I would say about David Silva and Yaya Toure, they were playing with lesser players at the time.
Like
me. I knew that's what you were angling for, Dave. Anyway, but they got us to a first FA Cup and then got us over the line, the Premier League. And I think Kevin coming at a right time where they'd already run it and they're coming to a great team under Pellegrini, and then he goes undone.
Yeah, but a compliment with that, then he's outstanding with a lot of brilliant players, Micah.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? That's another star sign for him to say he can still be head and shoulders above brilliant players around him later on in his career. That's what the great players do.
So if he's in a great team and he stands out amongst those great players, does that make him the best on that list?
And these are all brilliant players on here. Absolutely brilliant. Brilliant stats, brilliant careers, good characters, all these lads. All contributed brilliant to the game. But if again you're talking about your best 11, you'd have to have De Bruyne in there.
Steven Gerrard's got to be in there as well. He was my favourite.
You can start hedging your bets now.
Oh yeah, he was my favourite. Honestly, he could do absolutely. You mentioned about positions and stuff, but Steven Gerrard.
You've got 5 in midfield, haven't you? You've got Yaya, David Silva, you've got Kevin De Bruyne, Steven Gerrard. That's right.
Izzy, how do you possibly rank those great names?
You can't. I mean, it comes down to subjective, like what you like, how you value football, how you see the game. I mean, for me, I modelled my game on Frank Lampard, late arriving into the box, goal-scoring midfielder, and he just made a career of it, the way he arrived. I mean, how many of his goals were the same? The way he timed his runs, he looked at the players around him. I thought he adapted really well in games. But for me, De Bruyne, he's just completely modernised. The dynamism of the way that he plays football, he picks up the balls, he drives into space, and it's actually been quite sad to see him in recent years. I remember first game of last season at Burnley away, and he picked up a hamstring injury again, and then he was out for a while. Champions League final, he's picked up a hamstring injury, and it's sad to see because you think over the course of his career how much high-speed running he's done and how much he's taken the games by the scruff of the neck, that he's not able to sort of hit that any longer, and we've seen it, disappointing performance from him today, but it doesn't reflect at all on what he's done in this Premier League.
And doesn't something unite all those players on that list as well, Roy, that when their team really needed them, they found that X-factor moment?
Again, that's what all the great players do, and that's what the top players, they affect games. When you look back at all the great games, and people like Gerrard and Scholes and all these lads, you remember them for stepping up in the big games and big moments, and that's why they're top players, obviously.
What's it like being a great player, though? Come on, tell us what it's like.
Me?
Yeah.
I played in a great team.
You was a great player, Roy. Come on.
No, absolutely not.
Gary.
No, I wasn't on a level with them.
He was a great player. But we're not attacking. He wasn't attacking midfield in his younger career, but he was a great midfield player, all-round midfield player, like sort of Patrick Vieira and maybe. But you wouldn't put him in the attacking midfield player stats, would you? That's why I said it'd be unfair to say who's the best midfield player in the Premier League when you haven't got Patrick Vieira on it and Roy Keane on it.
You keep saying both of them. Are you having both in your team, by the way?
No, I mean,
pick one, Gary.
I know I'd pick Roy before Patrick, but that's not because Patrick's a great player. But I would pick Roy before Patrick. But then I love Paul Scholes as well. So the reality of it is you are trying to cram so many great players into a team, but you would have to play 3 in midfield.
But it's Scholesy in your team.
The key is surround yourself with good players. They make you look a bit better. That helps.
Yeah. Is Scholesy in your team as well?
Oh, yeah.
How many you played?
And Bex, Steve Gerrard.
3-6-1.
15-player teams, all right. We will nail you down on all of this at some point in the near future. Roy, Izzy, Micah and Gary, thank you very much. We didn't get a goal here, but we managed to get 5 at Fulham, and a bit of a surprise as well. Bye from us.